Listen, I'm going to be straight with you. 95% of anglers are making the same 5 mistakes on every single trip, and it's costing them fish they don't even know they're losing. I'm talking about guys who spend hundreds on gear, wake up before dawn, and still come home with an empty cooler while the guy in the beat-up boat next to them is loading his limit. It's about these 5 hidden techniques that tournament pros and fishing guides use religiously but almost never talk about because frankly, it's how they stay in business. Fix these 5 things, and I'm not exaggerating when I say you can triple your catch rate starting this weekend. And mistake number 3? That's the one I see at every single boat ramp, and it's costing you more fish than everything else on this list combined. Stay locked in because the last one will change every trip you take from now on. Number 5, you're setting the hook at the wrong moment, and it's why you're losing 70% of your strikes. Most anglers feel that tap, that little bump on their line, and they immediately rip back on the rod like they're trying to set the hook through a concrete wall. You learned this from your uncle or some buddy who said you gotta really slam it home. Problem is, when a fish first touches your bait, especially bass, walleye, or trout, they're not committing yet. They're tasting it, checking it out, deciding if it's worth eating. When you set the hook during that initial tap, you're yanking it right out of their mouth before they've actually taken it. What kills your catch here is simple fish behavior. Most species don't inhale your bait in one motion. They grab it, they adjust it, they turn it, and then they commit. Bass tournament pros will tell you this all day long. The difference between amateurs and winners is patience on the hook set. I tested this across an entire season, forcing myself to wait 1 full second after feeling contact, and my hookup ratio went from maybe 30% to over 70% on soft plastics alone. Here's the fix. When you feel that first tap, don't do anything. Keep your rod tip steady, maybe even feed a tiny bit of slack, and wait for the weight. You'll feel the difference between a tap and actual weight when the fish turns with your bait. That's when you set the hook, firm and smooth, not violent. The result? You'll land fish you used to lose, you'll stop pulling baits away from interested fish, and you'll start understanding what a real bite actually feels like. Number 4. Your retrieve speed is killing your catch, and you don't even realize it. 90% of recreational anglers retrieve their lures way too fast. You cast out, you start cranking, and you bring it back at the speed you think looks good because you want to cover water. I get it. Slow feels boring. Slow feels like you're wasting time. But here's what's actually happening underwater. Most bait fish, especially wounded or vulnerable ones that predators target, don't zip through the water like they're late for a meeting. They move slowly, erratically, sometimes they barely move at all. When you're burning your crankbait or ripping your spinnerbait back at high speed, you're imitating a healthy, fast, hard-to-catch bait that fish ignore because it's not worth the energy. Guides have known this forever. On tough days when fish aren't aggressive, slowing down is the difference between zero fish and a limit. I've watched guys fishing right next to me throwing the exact same lure, same color, same everything, and I'll outfish them 5-1 just by slowing my retrieve to half their speed. The fix is stupidly simple but requires discipline. After you cast, count to 3 before you even start reeling. Then retrieve at about half the speed you think you should. For crankbaits, slow and steady with long pauses. For soft plastics, drag it, pause for 5 seconds, drag it again. For spinnerbaits, slow. Roll them just fast enough to feel the blade thumping. What changes when you do this? Fish have more time to track your bait, they see an easy meal, and they commit. You'll get fewer reaction strikes but way more solid, confident bites from fish that actually want to eat. Your hookup percentage goes up, and you start catching the bigger, lazier fish that won't chase fast-moving baits. If this is already clicking for you, hit like so YouTube shares this with more anglers who need to hear it, because what's coming next is the one mistake I see every single weekend, and it's an absolute fish killer. Number 3, you're fishing the wrong depth and wondering why the fish aren't biting. This is the boat ramp mistake I mentioned earlier. Guys show up, they tie on their favorite lure, the one that worked last month or last year, and they just start casting without thinking about where the fish actually are right now. You're throwing a shallow running crankbait when the fish are sitting in 15 feet of water, or you're dragging bottom in 20 feet when they've moved up to 5 feet to feed. Fish are not randomly distributed throughout the water column. They position themselves at specific depths based on water temperature, oxygen levels, bait fish location, and time of day. In summer, bass might be deep during midday heat and shallow at dawn. In spring, they're moving shallow to spawn. In fall, they follow bait fish schools that are suspended mid-depth. If you're not matching your bait depth to where the fish are, you're literally fishing empty water. Tournament anglers spend the first hour of every competition finding the depth where fish are holding, and then they only throw baits that run at that exact depth. Here's the fix. Before you even make your first cast, think about the conditions. What's the water temperature? What time of day is it? What's the weather been like? Use that to make an educated guess about depth, then test it. Start shallow, work deeper, or use your electronics if you have them. Once you find fish or get a bite, note that depth and focus everything on that zone. Use lures that run at that depth. If fish are at 10 feet, use a crankbait that dives to 10 feet, or count down a jig to 10 feet, or use a Carolina rig that keeps your bait hovering at 10 feet. The result is immediate. You go from hoping fish will randomly appear to actually fishing where they live. You'll catch more fish, you'll catch them faster, and you'll stop wasting hours in dead zones. Number 2, your line is too visible and it's spooking every fish that gets close to your bait. I know. You've been using 12-pound mono because it's cheap, it's easy to tie, and your buddy uses it too. Or maybe you're using bright green braided line because the guy at the tackle shop said it's the strongest. Here's the reality. Fish can see your line, especially in clear water, especially in bright conditions, and especially when they're not in aggressive feeding mode. Bass, trout, and walleye have excellent vision, and when they see a thick, visible line attached to what's supposed to be a natural bait, they get suspicious. They might follow it, they might even bump it, but they won't commit to a full bite. This is why fishing guides in clear water lakes use fluorocarbon leaders or straight fluorocarbon. It's nearly invisible underwater. I switched from mono to fluorocarbon on my spinning setups and immediately started catching more pressured fish, more clear water fish, and more follow-up bites from fish that had previously just looked at my bait. The fix depends on your setup. If you're using braid because you need the strength and sensitivity, tie on a 2 to 3 foot fluorocarbon leader using an FG knot or double uni knot. If you're spooling straight line, switch to fluorocarbon in the 6 to 10 pound range for most applications. Yes, it's more expensive than mono. Yes, it's a little stiffer and harder to manage. But the difference in bites is undeniable. What changes? Fish that used to turn away at the last second now eat. Pressured fish that have seen every lure in the tackle box suddenly become catchable again. Your confidence goes up because you're not second-guessing whether fish can see your setup. You're clearly someone who actually wants to improve, not just complain about slow days. That's what separates good anglers from great ones. Number 1, you're not paying attention to what the fish are actually telling you, and it's costing you everything. Most anglers fish on autopilot. They tie on what worked last time, they fish how they always fish, and when it doesn't work, they blame the weather, the pressure, the moon phase, whatever. But fish are constantly communicating through their behavior, and if you're not watching and adjusting, you're fishing blind. When you get a short strike or a follow with no bite, that's the fish telling you something's wrong with your presentation. Maybe your bait is too big, maybe your color is off, maybe your retrieve is wrong. When you catch one fish in a specific spot under specific conditions, that's the fish telling you to repeat that exact pattern. When you're not getting bites at all, that's the fish telling you they're not where you think they are or not eating what you're throwing. Professional anglers and guides succeed because they observe, they adjust, and they repeat what works instead of stubbornly fishing the same way all day. The moment I started treating every cast as information, every bite as a clue, and every blank stretch as a signal to change something, my consistency exploded. The fix is a mindset shift. Start every trip with a plan based on conditions, but be ready to change everything. If you're not getting bites in 30 minutes, change depth, change lure, change location. If you get one bite, dissect why. What depth, what structure, what retrieve, what bait. Then, duplicate it exactly. Keep a mental or written log of what's working. Pay attention to water color, wind direction, sun position, everything. The result is you stop being a recreational angler who gets lucky sometimes and you become a consistent angler who understands cause and effect. You start predicting fish behavior instead of reacting to it. You catch fish when everyone else is struggling because you're reading the water and adjusting. And there you have it. 5 hidden techniques that only professionals use consistently. Eliminate even half of these mistakes and you'll outfish everyone else on the water without spending a dime on new gear. Fix those 5 things and you won't recognize your catch rate. Your buddies will think you switched spots or got some secret insider information. But the truth is simpler. You just started fishing the way professionals fish instead of the way most weekend anglers fish. Imagine actually looking forward to every trip because, you're coming home with fish instead of excuses. Hit like, subscribe, and comment which mistake you've been making. I read every single one. And if you want even more ways to increase your catch, check out my video on reading water structure like a tournament pro. Now get out there and put this into practice. I'll see you on the water.